Happy Thanksgiving. Why are about 70 to 80% of divorces initiated by women? And this video is made for the men because there is something you guys are doing that is making us file for divorce, and you don't know what it is, and so some of you are afraid to get into relationships. So this will help you get into a relationship that has a chance of surviving a long time. And if you're already in a relationship, this will help your relationship improve because your woman is going to feel a lot happier. Okay, so I was watching Adam Lane Smith, a therapist focusing on attachment issues, on the Michaela Peterson podcast. And he talks about that as a couples therapist, I've never seen even one divorce where the husband didn't have attachment issues. He also says husbands who complain about having zero sex have no idea how the female sex drive actually works. So taking number 2, a woman to want sex in a long-term relationship is going to need a man who is emotionally vulnerable with her. And that's the problem in these relationships where the woman files for divorce. It's usually the man who is emotionally walled off. He's walled off and he's unaware that he's walled off, and he's ignoring her requests and bids for connection. Now, a lot of men get very confused by this. They say, now listen carefully, I don't want a bunch of comments telling me that you're not going to cry like a woman. That's not what I mean. What does it look like for a man to be vulnerable? It's not going to look the same as a woman being vulnerable. So listen carefully, guys. First of all, I really recommend that you get his books. He has a few 100-page pamphlets available on Amazon, which are written specifically for men. But a lot of men were raised to feel shame around having emotions or having needs, and women too. A lot of us were shamed for having needs. So we learned as children to suppress our needs, suppress our wants, and try to get things from people through passive-aggressive, manipulative ways. Now, I'm going to add that women also can have attachment issues that can lead them to divorce, but for the wrong reasons. They might just feel unhappy in their marriages, but it could be the woman's fault as well. So I'm not sure I agree that it's always the man, but that's what he's saying. So an attachment issue looks like this. As a child, if I learn that I get punished for having needs, I get ignored for having needs or wants, my opinions and thoughts and emotions don't matter, I as a child learned to shut this down, and I don't even realize it. And then I would go through life in this kind of shut off way, which is not amenable to healthy relationships. And what these people will often do is they'll think, if my partner loves me, my partner would know what I want. They should read my mind, okay? And they're afraid to be vulnerable. They're afraid to share what they need and what they want. And so the example he gives is like a woman may use sex to try to get her man to connect with her, but she's not enjoying the sex. She's just performing for his pleasure, to get him to like her. How do I look? Faking her orgasms, making sure, her face is at the right angle, and it's all about pleasing him. She's not really enjoying it. And what it could look like sexually for the man is he may end up doing a whole bunch of chores. I did the dishes, I vacuumed the house, I took care of the kids, I gave him a bath. Now aren't you going to fuck me? But and then getting more and more resentful over the years that his wife doesn't want sex with him, and she's thinking, oh honey, thanks for pitching in and doing your share, but she doesn't feel any sexual orientation toward him because he has completely neglected her emotionally, and he's going through all these chores in a bid to get sex instead of just like ravaging her, giving her attention, ravaging her. Ultimately, what it comes down to for both people is that people have to get into relationships where there is room for their emotional expression. And people in a healthy relationship, he says he's never seen a couple that has a healthy attachment style get divorced. So it has to do with your attachment style. And if your attachment style is people don't care what I want, people don't care what I need, you're setting yourself up for divorce, frankly, and for an unhappy relationship. You have to be able, and you can practice with your friends to say, to state some boundaries, to make requests, to state your needs, you know. And in a relationship, emotional vulnerability is very important now. It's going to be different for men versus women. Women, we are more emotional. And when I say emotional, I'm not talking about negative emotions like being volatile or explosive or rageful. That's not what I'm speaking of. I'm speaking about, joy and exuberance and curiosity and pleasure and laughter. And yes, there can be sadness, but again, you are not responsible for your woman's emotions. As a man, your role is to be interested in how the woman is feeling. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what it means for a man to make a woman feel emotionally connected. Okay, number one, you cannot freak out at emotions, okay? This is the thing that men have to learn. A lot of guys freak out at emotions. You can't do that. You've got to stay calm and let somebody else experience their feelings. You're not responsible for the feelings that they have, but in a relationship, you have to absolutely care how your partner is feeling. And the moment one of you stops caring how your partner is feeling, you are starting to put up a brick. And eventually all these bricks are a wall and the relationship is gone. The most important thing in a relationship is that you are with someone that you care how they feel. You have the ability to care how they feel, and you actually care how they feel. So you're not responsible for their feelings. You're not trying to make the feelings go away. But you, as a man, are able to listen to a woman share her feelings about something. Again, I'm being very careful here, guys. She can't attack you, blame you, criticize you, or put you down. Those are not feelings. Those are retaliations and attacks and abuse. I'm talking about her saying, this is how I feel about that, or this is what happened at work today, or this is what I would like in our relationship. And you have to be able to listen and get curious and find delight in her emotions, her sexual pleasure, her emotions, her joy. You have to be able to be curious about and find delight in it. So you got to find a healthy woman who's in touch with her emotions to experience that, okay? So you have to be able to delight in her emotions and care about her emotions and listen to her emotions and say things like, how was your day, sweetheart? How are you feeling? And really listen and look at her when she's talking. She wants to feel like you care about her. Not trying to fix it, not telling her not to feel that way. That's not listening and caring. And likewise, a woman will need you to be vulnerable. Now, your way of being vulnerable is not going to be the same as hers. So Adam Lane Smith gives an example, and I'll share my own as well, but he says, like, for a man, say a man has like something at work that's stressing him out. He's not going to come to his woman and cry at her feet for pity. That would be such a turnoff. But he's going to come to her and say, there's this thing happening at work. This is what I want to do about it. And, what do you think? Do you see any holes in this theory or something to add to it? Because he's including her in his decision making and being vulnerable with the problem he has. And he says because men actually have a bigger brain than women, but it's not as connected, they tend to not see all of the other things that can go wrong. Like, we women have more, our brain is smaller, but it's more active and more connected. So we're able to see more things that could be happening, and we also have more intuition. So it's a way of involving her. But the way that a man can be vulnerable with a woman is, one, by stating what he wants. Don't just do the chores to get sex. Just say, I really want to fuck you. You're so beautiful. And give her attention that's not just sexual. Hold her hand. Tell her you appreciate her. Take her on dates. Make her. Uh, uh, Being vulnerable is being connected to your heart and showing appreciation. It also means being assertive and asking for what you want. And it also means that you have boundaries. If you're resentful of something she does, you tell her. You don't just hold it in because, we don't do emotions around here. You can say, I don't like when you do this. I'd like to do this thing differently. And you can also share things, your insecurities. When one of your parents dies, you can cry. You're not going to be as emotional, but you absolutely have to share some of your inner world. And for a lot of men, that means learning that people aren't going to leave you when you share your needs and your wants and your desires. You absolutely have to start speaking up if there's something you don't like in the relationship. You can even say, hey, I miss that we used to have more sex and now we're not. Is there, what is happening? Just start being more open and not be so afraid of your emotions, because without emotions, a relationship is just two people as objects and it cannot sustain the test of time. Other ways that men can show their emotions is, well, like I said, showing the woman appreciation, listening to her feelings, sharing his dreams, what he wants to do, just opening up a little bit about his inner world so she feels included and she feels close. Because without that, women start to feel like really alone in the relationship. We don't want you to be a woman, but we need you to be a human. And without emotions, you're cut off from your humanity. And that is why women file for divorce. Now, I will say that there can also be women who are the ones, I think that a lot of women are also shut off from their emotions. And so they get bored in the relationship and they don't know why. And so they think there's somebody better out there. They don't know that they're the problem. So those of you who are afraid of relationships, the key, guys, is to be in touch with your emotions and get only into relationships with people who are in touch with their emotions, who will ask you for what they want, who will express and communicate what they like, what their needs are in a relationship, and what their boundaries are. So in early dating, guys, you might ask a woman, what are your needs in a relationship? If someone asks me that, I would say I need a relationship in which there is room for my full self-expression, with someone who's committed to personal development, who cares how I feel, and who wants to work through things, for as an example. But somebody who's not in tune with that might say, oh, I need to feel financially secure. I need a guy who's really good looking and makes a lot of money. You want to find out also if this person is able to set boundaries and express what they want and tell you no and be comfortable saying no. So the bottom line is that Adam Lane Smith talks about relationships fall apart over attachment styles, that people have wounded attachment styles where they're insecurely attached or anxiously attached, they're not securely attached. And yet you can easily change that with some practices and some self-awareness, and that people who are healthy attached don't get divorced. Because if you're healthy attached, you can express your needs and your wants and your boundaries. You can care about what the other person wants, and you can work out any problem. But you cannot work out anything if you're in a relationship with someone who's unhealthy attached. And in my last relationship, I was with someone who was unhealthy attached, who didn't express any of his needs, and who was passive aggressive. And no matter what I did, I tried to bring him out of it or be like this nourishing, comforting presence that was so safe for him to express whatever he wanted. He still didn't want to. So if you're with someone like that, you cannot change people like that. You cannot force people to change. You cannot inspire people to change. They have to want to change, and often it just comes through their own pain. So my recommendation for you guys is only date people who are securely attached. And that means they're comfortable expressing their desires, their needs, their wants, and their boundaries because it feels safe to them to do so, and so they do so. Else you're stuck with people who are cut off from their emotions, who become passive aggressive, who become violent and abusive. If they can't tell you what they want, they're going to lash out at the drop of a hat. They're going to be explosive. They're going to be controlling. They're going to be inauthentic, lying, pretending, faking, passive aggressive, manipulating, withdrawing, sulking. You know, there's so many negative behaviors. And in order to have a healthy relationship, you've got to be with someone who is self-aware and who wants to look at that, and who takes responsibility for their own wants, needs, and has the ability to care about the other person in the relationship. So all of you have a 100% chance of having a forever relationship, but you have to be a person who has a healthy attachment style. So there's the answer. How to make sure that your woman doesn't divorce you is and also one more thing I want to throw in, doesn't mean you can be a doormat. A doormat is not a healthy attachment style. That's like, I need to do what you want so you don't leave me. That's not healthy either. That's fawning. So it's being knowing what you want, and you may need to work with a therapist to get there. Knowing what you want, knowing that your feelings and desires and needs matter, and expressing them, and only being around people who care what they are. And that's why in my relationships with my family, and the holidays are a good time to remind ourselves that we don't owe anyone a relationship, that if we're kind and we're around other people who are not kind and don't care how we feel and what we want and what our boundaries are, we don't owe them a relationship. And I think it's healthy, it is my opinion, to not be in contact with people like that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching my video.